What do aliens, Bigfoot, and serial killers have in common? They are all suggested reasons why so many people go missing in the American national parks. It is believed approximately 1,600 people go missing in the parks each year, many of whom are never found. The circumstances surrounding their disappearances vary, but tend to boggle searchers and investigators alike. David Paulides, author of the Missing 411 series, believes there may be more to the story than we are being told. Welcome to Critical Theories. Let's dive down the rabbit hole. The premise behind Missing 411 might sound far-fetched at first, but there may be something to the suspicions it raises. Paulides is a retired police officer and current private investigator. He had a storied 20-year career working primarily within the San Jose Police Department in California. There, he was a street-level officer. He was on the SWAT team and was even a part of the detective division. It was here that he would hone the craft that later in life would lead him to making a shocking series of discoveries. Paulides fully believes in Bigfoot. However, he does not present Bigfoot as the solution to these disappearances. Rather, it was his search for Bigfoot that brought him into contact with two national park rangers. In one of these interactions, a ranger expressed concern that missing persons cases that take place within the national parks are handled with a suspicious level of secrecy. They claim that when people go missing in the parks, the circumstances can be incredibly strange. With some of the disappearances, everything just felt off. When he began looking into the claims himself, Paulides found the circumstances were not just strange, they were downright impossible. The amount of times people disappeared while either with other people or within sight of others was astounding. In many cases, no one heard or saw anything. These missing people just vanished. Many of these disappearances have remained unsolved, with little to no indication of what happened. Oftentimes, supplies will be left behind undisturbed. Occasionally, clothes or shoes that they were wearing on the day of their disappearance will be left at or near the location of their disappearance. When search dogs are employed in the efforts, their actions will leave searchers baffled. They follow scents up sheer cliffs or to the tops of hills and mountains, and will then lie down, indicating the scent trail has ended. In the unfortunate cases where bodies are recovered, they tend to be well within the search parameters, and often in places that have been thoroughly combed over by multiple teams of searchers. The amount of bodies that have been found within 200 meters of their last known location is staggering as well. Paulides and his fellow researchers find it nearly impossible that this many bodies could be so consistently overlooked, especially by law enforcement and search parties. The number of people who would need to critically fail at their job would be astronomical. Not all the disappearances have unfortunate endings. However, all of them have shocking details attached to them. While there is a high number of reported missing children among his research, there are plenty of those children who are found. However, the circumstances under which they are found and the stories they tell when they are located leave investigators scratching their heads. 3-year-old Rowan Grifton went missing during a family trip out in the woods. After an extensive search of the area, everyone involved began to lose hope. Days after his disappearance, though, he was found. However, he was miles outside the search zone in a swamp. Two things are important to note in this example. The first is that he could not swim, and it was entirely impossible for him to have reached his final location on his own. The second is that he was well fed and comfortable. Rowan claimed that a giant man was playing peekaboo in the trees with him while the family was in the woods, and he decided to follow the man. Then, the man took care of him and protected him from the animals while they stayed in the swamp. Granted, the account given by a toddler might not hold up in court. This story is not an uncommon one, however. Children as old as 12 and 13 have gone missing, only to be found impossibly far away, across treacherous terrain, in otherwise perfect health. They tend to be unharmed and well taken care of during their missing time. One child was found 9 hours after their disappearance, barefoot, over 15 miles away, across 2 separate mountain ranges. The likelihood of these children accomplishing this kind of travel alone is beyond impossible. The circumstances around the missing adults are just as perplexing. Stephen Kubacki, a healthy man in his early 20s with outdoor experience, went missing while on a solo cross-country skiing trip. He was tracked steadily until his trail went cold and his footprints just stopped, 200 feet out onto the frozen Lake Michigan. Dogs could not track him, and law enforcement was unable to put together any clues or leads. Then, 14 months later, Stephen popped back up in his hometown with no memory of what had happened to him. He had a brochure for an attraction in California, and items that led investigators to believe that he had somehow been to Ohio, Wisconsin, and the American West Coast. Stephen is an example of a case where the location of his disappearance is of great significance. Where he was last seen was an area known to the Lake Michigan Triangle, or just the Michigan Triangle. This is a stretch of the Lake Michigan coast where a higher than average number of disappearances and odd occurrences are reported. David Paulides does not believe this is a coincidence. According to his research, these pockets of strange activity, or clusters as he calls them, are worth scrutinizing. As you might have already guessed, several of the American national parks are considered cluster regions. Of the 425 national parks, Yellowstone and Yosemite have the highest collections of disappearances. Going back to the claims that kicked off Paulides' 3-year-long investigation, he found local reports of the disappearances, but the Park Service themselves kept no record of their missing persons. They did not document the events in most cases, and if there were any, they would never cross-reference their findings with any law enforcement databases. The National Park Service has the highest rate of missing persons in the country, but keeps no record of the investigations, at least none that is available to the public. If they are keeping tabs on these cases, they're not keeping those records so anyone outside the agency can find them. And considering the amount of high-profile interactions in some of these cases, that is beyond strange. According to Paulides, there have been many instances where forces such as the FBI, the Army Rangers, and the National Guard have been involved in search efforts. Yet, according to the official records, not only were they not there, the searches, and even the disappearances, never happened. The people are still missing, but there's no record of any of the investigating forces having been there. This is even more suspicious when there is anecdotal and photographic evidence that confirms they were on the scene. The mysterious circumstances of the disappearances, the denial of involvement by outside investigative forces, and the lack of a database with the Park Service, along with a host of other evidence, has led many to call foul on the situation. Those voices are led by David Paulides. He has yet to come out and state his theories, but he claims that the list of suspects is narrowing. This has not stopped the wider community from making their case for various theories. Naturally, some of them take a little faith to believe, while others are almost too chilling to consider for long. Among the wider community, there are 3 primary theories. The first, and given his history, possibly the one that Paulides himself believes, is that Bigfoot or Sasquatch is responsible for some of the more unexplainable disappearances. The evidence provided for this is the fact that in some cases, barefoot prints have been found nearby, and the children who have been recovered alive all tell similar stories. The accounts all tend to describe a large man or several large people, sometimes very hairy or wolf-like, who carries them away, cares for them, and then leaves them where they are found. Obviously, the jury is still out on whether Bigfoot even exists, so there are many who are skeptical of this solution. The next theory is alien abduction or interdimensional interference. Those who claim this to be the case cite the fact that the trail tends to go cold suddenly, and in some cases, there's a significant amount of foliage that is disturbed in the area. They claim this does not indicate a struggle of any kind, but rather an energetic force. They believe the pattern matches the accounts of those who claim to have been abducted by extraterrestrial beings or have witnessed abductions. There are also those who believe the disappearances may not be an abduction, but rather accidentally stepping through temporary dimensional doors. Regardless of the method, both camps believe that aliens or interdimensional beings are the root cause. As with Bigfoot, however, there is no definitive evidence for these beings. The third camp is a bit more natural, yet far more concerning. There are those who believe that these cluster areas are the hunting grounds for serial killers. Their evidence for this is that the parks, while popular, are rather remote and allow for killers to move around more or less undetected. They also claim that the bodies being brought back to the point of disappearance displays a ritual or pattern of behavior that is often associated with serial murderers. The fact that so many high-profile agencies and groups have been associated with the searches, and the fact that they have been so secretive about their involvement, also leads many to believe the reason the disappearances are not documented is that they are parts of open investigations. For law enforcement to release the information they have could jeopardize the investigations, according to those who follow this line of thought. Whether Bigfoot, aliens, or prolific serial killers, we ultimately don't know for sure why all these disappearances have happened. We hope that someday the truth will be revealed, but until then, amateur sleuths are left to their theories. The question posed to everyone is the same. What do you believe is happening in American national parks? Thanks for watching.